Hey, Diana, did you know that introverts can make great rainmakers?
Marc, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. I am Marc Whitehead, your host, alongside my co-host, Diana Berry, COO of my law firm. And today we're going to talk about rainmaking for introverts. So this was an interesting topic that we came up with, and it actually, I think, was generated by a Successful Barrister article that I wrote, I think, many years ago. And I can't even remember the title of it, but Diana, you picked it out. So let's talk about that real quick.
Well, your article was titled Rainmaking for Introverts, How to Captivate Your Social and Professional Acquaintances to Build Your Practice.
Right. Now, I've always said that I'm naturally an introvert, which nobody believes.
I certainly do not.
And I get it. You know, as the boss, I have to put on this boss face every morning, as I have to flip the switch every morning and be the boss and put my high D on, my extroverted self on. But that's not my natural style.
So you took the 16 personalities or the Myers-Briggs equivalent, the free equivalent to thereof, and it literally said you were an E versus the I in the first four letters. So, I mean, like that means.
And
you're
I have no idea what that means.
That means you're an extrovert. Okay. Whereas I and the majority of your attorneys are introverts.
So I would counter that with the fact that I've taken the DISC profile twice, 5 years apart, and I scored the exact same thing both times 5 years apart. So therefore, I tend to trust it more. And it clearly said that I was more of an introverted personality naturally.
I also think you gamed that test. I think you knew what you wanted it to come out as, and you made it so.
So I would say that if I was able to game the test twice over a 5-year period and hit the exact same score, either it's true or I'm insanely brilliant.
Okay, I think we're going to move on. So we're going to talk. So you think you're an introvert?
I do.
Naturally.
I am naturally introvert. And it's simple. When I'm in a group of people, I prefer to sit back and listen naturally. I don't sit and dominate the conversation. I prefer to take in what other people are giving me and then, give my quick, witty counterpunch when necessary. But you're never going to see me carrying a conversation in a casual setting.
I completely disagree. So in our last Atticus, we were in this auditorium type setting. And where did you choose for us to sit?
I chose for us to sit right in the middle.
Of the room.
Right.
So middle row of the middle of the room.
So here would be my point to that. Naturally, I would want to sit in the back and not be in the middle of all the hubbub. But I made a conscious decision, and that's, I think, what is confusing you. I constantly make conscious decisions to do things to take me out of my comfort zone because I know I need to. And I think that's kind of the point of the article here was in order to be in the middle of the action, in order to be a better socializer, a better networker, a better rainmaker in this group of lawyers, I knew I needed to sit in the middle. It's not where I wanted to sit, but I made a conscious decision to step outside of what was comfortable for me to get into the middle of the action because I knew that would be where the best chance of doing exactly what we were there to do, which was to network and, quite frankly, into rainmake.
So, yeah, and how are you defining being a, rainmaker? For purposes of this podcast, giving our listeners some tips to being a successful rainmaker as an introvert. How are you defining rainmaker?
So first of all, you need to be relevant to whoever you're in front of, whoever you're trying to connect with. Why do they care about you? Why do they care about what you do? So you need to be relevant to them. You need to be, there was the old adage you hear a million times, you got to, you do business with people you know, you like, you trust. Then you've got to be memorable. They've got to remember you. I mean, people meet hundreds of people a year, probably more than that, depending on how much you get out. So, you have to be memorable. So sometimes memorable is memorable in the moment. Sometimes memorable means that you are persistent, you're consistent, you follow up with people many times over weeks, months, years, to get that whole top of mind awareness. It's not just top of mind awareness. We talk about that all the time, with your client base. You need to keep top of mind awareness, with your professional referral sources as well.
So I think we're talking about today being a rainmaker, being referrable, being memorable for sure, but being referrable, helping attorneys, particularly any of those that find themselves as introverts, helping them with some real practical tips that you've developed over the years to become more, to be a rainmaker, more referrable. If it wasn't easy for you, I think that you've overcome that obviously successfully, because I didn't pick up on the fact that the whole Atticus thing wasn't your natural style. I did grumble about it a lot. Still am, obviously.
To be referable, you need to be intentional about what you're doing, and for an introvert particularly, because it doesn't come naturally to you. There are some people that just have the gift of gab and just float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and just can work a room and not even think about it. But for an introvert, that's just not the way it naturally occurs. You actually have to think about it. You have to come up with a plan. You have to be intentional. You have to intentionally think, I need to, number one, figure out how to put myself in the middle of the conversation. Hence, that's why we sit in the middle of the room. That was an intentional act. You have to be inquisitive. You have to try to engage people in a way that, number one, is not offensive, and number two, hopefully will be the opposite of that, be enjoyable for the people you're trying to engage with. Which is, in my mind, it's always like, be prepared with some good questions.
That's a great interview tip too. And so, I mean, as a self-proclaimed and firm introvert, I do think that there's something to the dangers of like labels. And so instead of saying I'm an introvert, I'm going to hate this networking event, I think the dangers of self-talk, you just turn that around into something hopefully positive. I can leave in 30 minutes if I want to, or, I can get, find something good out of this, or, I've got this down. So I do think that there is something about like talking to yourself first before you go into a room. So we're going to talk more about some of the 4 tips that you've come up with over the course of your career to help our other fellow introverts in our next segment.
Yes, absolutely.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead and Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting, and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
So we're sitting here talking about rainmaking for introverts. Mm-hmm. I think we left on the thought that introverts really need to focus on being intentional about how they plan on marketing themselves, how they turn themselves into rainmakers, because it's just not going to come naturally.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean for you? What does that look like? How did you do that?
Well, first thing, it's know thyself. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to know what you're working with before you can come up with a plan. Again, I referred to the DISC profile that I've taken twice over a 5-year period.
So anyway, what does the DISC stand for again?
DISC is a personality profile test. DISC is an acronym for I think the 4 domains are dominance, influencer, steadiness, and what's C?
Compliance or conscientiousness.
Conscientiousness, compliance. And, people tend to fall somewhere in one of those 4 categories. I'm a high S, which means I'm a steady person. I'm going to have some C in me.
So the I is what usually tells, it's shorthand for whether you're extroverted or introverted. There's a lot more to that, guys, but that's kind of how I shorthand
Right,
that.
and I don't have a tremendous amount of I in me. But again, your disc profile is not your destiny. It's just your tendency. It's where you're comfortable. So I recognize that I am not terribly comfortable being the talkative networking type person, the center of conversation. I'm not comfortable there. It's not that I can't do it, but it's just not where, if I had my choice, it's not where I would be. Okay.
Yeah.
It requires extra energy. It requires extra thought. It requires extra effort. So knowing thyself, it means I need to be a little bit more intentional about what I do. I need to think about how, if I'm going to try to insert myself into a group of people, how am I going to do that? I personally prefer to do it one-on-one as opposed to in a big group.
Same.
To me, a big group is 3 or more. So I like to have one-on-one conversations with people. To me, that's just more of a natural thing. So if I see a group of people, I might try to peel off 1 or peel off 2 and get them in a separate group if I really, really want to talk to these people. So I think that's the kind of the second part of this is, picking your battles, quite frankly. If you work in a room, who do you feel you need to talk to? You need to kind of think about that. Can this person, number one, is this going to be an enjoyable conversation? Because quite frankly, you're not going to do any of this if you're not enjoying the end result. You may be a little apprehensive to start with, but you want to enjoy yourself. Say you're at a cocktail party or you're at a luncheon or whatever. Is this somebody that I'm going to enjoy talking to? But secondly, is this somebody that could help along the way? Not necessarily that they could be a referral source, but they could lead you to a referral source, or they could lead you to an avenue that you hadn't thought about. So you want to be kind of intentional about when you work a room, who you approach, who you talk to. The worst thing you can do is go talk to the same person over and over again. You have that. If I have a friend in the room, I can talk to my friend later. I want to go talk to other people in the room. I want to get to know people. I want to get to develop the conversation.
Well, I'm definitely on the disc. So going back a couple thoughts ago, I am firmly a 6 on the I. So I'm absolutely
6 out of 100.
6 out of 100. So I'm absolutely an introvert. And so some of the things that I've learned, especially as I've gotten older, is I don't do the big events anymore. The happy hours, the big, networking, like where everybody, at the big HTLA happy hour. I just don't enjoy those as much. I'm certainly not going to get as much out of it as, say, a smaller group. I recently, a couple months ago, went to the Pilma Mastermind in Asheville. You unfortunately couldn't make it. You and Tina couldn't make it because of weather delays. I was able to fly out, and it was an incredibly enjoyable event. There were probably maybe 20 people in the whole event, or the whole, couple of 3 days that I was there. And I got a lot out of it. That's where I excel. So I put myself in a place where I could be successful. So over time, I've just stopped doing what everybody else does and going to the events that everybody else does, because they're just not as successful for me. And actually, I do think sometimes that I go up to my friends because it's a great way for me to get over my nerves. I'm walking into a room where I don't know anyone, so I'll go up and be like, okay, friendly face, and they might be talking to someone I don't know. So it's a great way to kind of introduce myself to someone I don't know and kind of get over those first few little jitters of networking.
I think if you're in a big room and you're not comfortable, what I would focus on is to try to have as many nice, brief, short conversations as you can, and try to gather people's cards, information, their name, and then you follow up with them later on a one-on-one basis. Hey, you want to go have a cup of coffee? Hey, you want to go have lunch? Hey, can I come by your office and we can discuss a few things? And then you use that time to make the contacts to develop the one-on-one conversations later. I think the best tip I ever got in marketing was it's not how many cards you give out, it's how many cards you get back.
No, that's a
and
good
what
point.
you do with the cards that you get back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for on our end, so when I get cards, I try to do one-on-one follow-ups, maybe write a thank you note, make a phone call, send an email, something to try to further that relationship. The other thing we do is I stick them in our database and they get on the Successful Barrister newsletter. So they're going to automatically get followed up with the newsletter, even if I don't do it on a one-on-one basis.
So you're staying top of mind to be a referral for them.
Stay in the top of mind. But I think the biggest thing that I do is I try to be a resource to people. You know, it's not like what can they do for me, it's what can you do for them. And if you can do things for them, all of a sudden you are top of mind on their list, and that's when you get the referrals. That's when you get them recommending you to other people. For example, so I hang out in the personal injury world, even though I don't do any single event personal injury any longer. But one of the key things that happens over and over and over again with PI lawyers is they get into mediation and they find out all of a sudden that their client's on Social Security Disability or SSI. And they're like, oh crap, this is going to screw up my whole mediation. I don't know what to do. I've told that scenario to a lot of lawyers, and they forget about it, but they think about it all of a sudden when they're in mediation. And I will get so many people texting me or calling me in the middle of the mediation. Mark, I just found this out. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Yeah, I've actually prepared a handout that I can email them directly, giving them instructions on how to handle this situation, particularly when you're in the middle of a mediation. You know, so I've made myself a resource. Same thing with special needs trusts. People will call me, PI lawyers will call me about special needs trusts. Even though I don't particularly do special needs trusts, I know about them. They kind of fall within our strike zone. So you try to make yourself a resource to people. You know, I have how-to books on various subjects about things that we do on disability, on long-term disability, on VA. I make myself a resource by giving those books to my referral sources. You know, they probably don't read the book, but it's sitting on their bookshelf and they see it, and it's a resource to them that they know that they can pick up when they need it.
Yeah, so it's definitely reframing the way you think about business development and being a rainmaker. It's not about what you're getting, it's about what you're giving.
Yes, it's all about giving. And people love givers, and people like to reward givers.
Yeah.
If you do a favor for somebody, people feel obligated, you know, to do a favor back for you.
Very helpful tips those resonated with me as an introvert.
I also think that you do need to have a good elevator pitch, you know, which is basically a way to describe what you do in a memorable way. Just bang, bang, bang.
Do you know yours?
Oh, now you're going to put me on the spot. You want to start it with something memorable. And the way I say it is, well, I'm the luckiest lawyer out there because I get to go to work every day and I get to help disabled workers and veterans with their disability claims. And what's the hook? I'm the luckiest lawyer out there. A lot of lawyers, you know, dread their jobs for whatever reason. And well, that's a whole nother podcast we can talk about. But I started with the hook. I'm the luckiest lawyer out there. I get to go to work every day and help disabled workers and veterans. That's a very short, simple way of describing exactly what we do.
And it definitely begs a follow-up question because a lot of people still don't know what that means, right?
Right.
So it's
Absolutely.
like, wait, so you help with Social Security, what? And
right.
So it definitely encourages conversation in a new setting.
Right. It's a hook. It piques their interest. It evokes questions, follow-up questions, and then you get to talk about yourself, not in an obtrusive way, you know, because you're just forcing it on them. You're just answering their questions.
Yeah.
So I've always found that was a good little hook. So I need to go trademark this before people go steal it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So just say TM now, and then they'll trademark.
We got to TM that.
Yeah. I don't have such a good hook, but I'm good with Diana Berry, COO for Marc, Whitehead and Associates, National Disability Law Firm.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap up in our next segment with kind of what you thought was the key to your success with networking as an introvert.
Absolutely. This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@markwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
And so we were talking over the break about whether or not being unique is a good way to stand out as an introvert trying to be a rainmaker. Is that fair? Is that a good? Did I state that correctly?
So, unique can be a lot of things. Okay, you can be unique in what you do.
Well, let's start with the thesis. Your thesis is that to be a successful rainmaker, you have to stand out. You have to be, as you've just said, memorable. And one of the best ways to do that is to discuss what makes you unique.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. So uniqueness can come in different forms. So number one, you could have a unique practice area. Secondly, you could maybe be an expert in a particular practice area, even if your practice area is not all that unique. Or you could have a unique way of delivering client services. Whatever it is, you have to, we talked about the book Traction. Traction was that every person should develop what they call their three uniques. What makes you unique in what you do? What makes you different? Why should I go to you as opposed to somebody else?
And despite having so many personal injury attorneys in Houston, you're saying that every single personal injury attorney has three uniques.
I'm not saying they have three uniques. I'm saying they need to try to figure out what they are if they can. So, yeah, if you can't figure that out, well, you got a problem. You better be memorable in some other way.
Is this why you wear the fancy pocket squares?
And
the socks?
Yes, I think that could be part of it.
It's a good icebreaker.
I think if you're in a public setting as a lawyer, dress snappy. Don't be a slouch.
But you wear bright, colorful things. It's a good icebreaker. I've seen it more times than not at AAJ when we meet people. It's a good, the bright blue.
People love the bright colored sports jackets. It is a good icebreaker, especially men like to compare. Believe it or not, men like to compare their jackets and who made your jacket, that sort of thing.
We've just turned this into a fashionista
I know. I don't know how this podcast went off on a fashion podcast. That wasn't where I intended to go.
I think I'm responsible for that one. But I do think that, so for introverts, it can be a bit daunting. Let me slip in the fact that I'm board certified into this conversation with this person I met 30 seconds ago.
Right.
And for me, it's almost like baby steps into the thing. Let me put myself into a room where I'm successful. Let me put, dress for females. Maybe it's a bag. Maybe it's your nails or something that's going to allow someone to have a conversation or to spark a conversation with you. Men, it's apparently your pocket squares and your bright blue jackets. And then you go from there, trying to find some more commonalities, because I'm very, very much an introvert.
Right. Which again goes back to how can you stand out as an introvert? I think the best way that I stand out as an introvert is, I can present myself as an expert. Now, I may not be able to present myself as an expert in the first 30 seconds of the conversation, but over time, as you develop the relationship, that it's easy to work in, hey, I'm double board certified, I've written several books on the topic, I speak on the topic, of disability law all the time, and I can start to work those things into the conversation and into the back and forth in the relationship that I'm trying to develop. I can demonstrate, hey, I can help you with certain resources. Hey, I wrote a white paper on this. If you'd like me, to send it to you, maybe this could help you out. Call me if you need anything.
And I think that that's kind of our closing point, or at least our final point today, is that it took time. So especially for introverts, it can be hard to keep at it, right? Because it's so uncomfortable, reaching out to someone, asking them if they want to go to lunch. It's asking, for, how can I help you? Or, yes, remember me? And so I'm saying, oh, wait, I don't remember you from the, other 50 people that I met that day. And so over time, what are some of the things that you've done to stay successful as a rainmaker?
So persistence is key. And that can come in a number of ways. Just Just keep showing up over and over and over again. Just keep showing up. That's half the battle. You know, but then have some backup to that. So our Successful Barrister newsletter, which is the genesis of this podcast, we have done for, 8 years now, somewhere in that neighborhood. We do 6 issues a year. It's directed specifically at attorneys. Once I make that initial connection and get that card from that attorney, well, they're on the list for life until they tell me that they hate me and take me off the list, which has happened 3 times, by the way. But then the other thing is that, you know, you need to touch them in other ways. People who regularly refer us or even occasionally refer us, you know, they're on our gift list. We give, I think we send out 3 gifts a year to our referral list, and we pick interesting times. I think we do St. Patrick's Day, we do 4th of July, and then we might do Halloween, you know, not a traditional Christmas time because people get inundated with stuff around Christmas. So do it at odd times to make it stand out and make it memorable. You know, I think this year we sent out 4th of July cookies. Just something like that. Then you stay top of mind with them. And then you physically want to call them, depending on how frequently they are, how much you want to move them up in the frequency chain on the referral. Try to call them or email them like once a quarter.
And you've done lunches. I hear stories of you just scheduling out your lunches, you know, almost at the beginning of the month so that you have a business development lunch, you know, maybe once a week. And I think I've seen our more successful Selena, one of our associates here, does a great job of that. She has at least one business development lunch a week, and she's always cultivating each of her relationships. And so I think it takes consistency, like all things in life. It takes persistence, like all things in life, and really kind of just making sure if you're, especially for introverts, that one-on-one setting gives you a real opportunity to be authentic about your expertise. And that's really where it shines instead of just making it sound like I'm just here for your referral. You're just really developing a relationship.
Right. So I think most books I read on the topic say the best rainmakers, you know, make 3 marketing contacts a week. Mm-hmm. You know, and what is that? That equates to somewhere around 160, 170 marketing contacts a year. And a marketing contact doesn't have to be a full-blown lunch. The lunches can sometimes sound daunting. I can't do 3.
Coffees. I love coffees.
But it could be something as simple as a quick phone call, a quick email. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have something very specific, comment. If your referral sources are also friends on social media, you know, if they post something, if they post cute pictures of their kids, write something nice in the comment section. I had a friend the other day, daughter just got married, posted pictures on Facebook. I wrote a nice little comment back. I know this is a great day for you. My daughter just got married, you know, back in May. It was great for us. So happy for you. Simple stuff like that, but just keep in the game. Keep your head in the game, because this is a lifelong project. This is not a project that you can begin this weekend and it's over the next quarter. This will go on for your entire professional career.
Yep, that's a great point. I know that you've been a member of AAJ for a number of years and you've gone to all those conferences, Atticus, so you've developed communities at each of these things. I've gone to Litify, which is the Litify conference 3 times. I'm going there next month. That'll be the 4th time. And it's interesting how just even in 3 years, I've developed that own little community and people are already on LinkedIn messaging, are you going this year? Let's meet up. And so consistency, I think it's easy, especially when you get busy, to say, okay, I'm not going this year. I'm not going to do that. But developing those relationships, like you said, take time. And so you'll see the fruits of those relationships over years.
But the hardest thing is to do it the first time.
Always.
I will say that the first time I went to AAJ, I was lost. I went by myself, didn't know anybody, just stood around. And my introverted self was like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I don't know anybody. But then I kept going. Mm-hmm. I went back again and again and again.
And now you know everybody.
And now I know everybody. I went with my wife and my family a couple of years back, the first time they'd ever been, and I walked in the room and there were 100 people that walked up to me, and my wife was like, how do you know all these people?
It is daunting, even as someone who just goes with you. My introvert tends to kind of come back into my shell.
I will give you this quick tip. When you go to a conference for the first time and you don't know anybody, most conferences have vendors. Vendors are paid there they're paid to be your friend. So if you want a friend and you don't know anybody, go talk to the vendors.
Go to the exhibit hall.
And they will give you all the attention you'll ever want. And guess what? They're connected. And they'll start inviting you to the after-hour parties, or they'll start inviting you to dinner, and they'll start introducing you to other people. That's a trick that I have learned at a lot of conferences is I always start with the vendors, because sometimes they have good things that you want to see. Mm-hmm. But more than anything, they're paid to be your friend. So they'll automatically be your friend. And some of my best friends to this day are still vendors. I hang out with them all the time because, they like me, and they like it when I buy stuff from them.
Well, those are good referral relationships, too.
Absolutely.
So, thanks, Marc, for your tip and expertise on the subject, one that's near and dear to my heart.
So I want to thank everybody for listening today to the Successful Barrister Podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Marc.
And I'm Diana.
And we are the dynamic duo of law. Remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, tell your friends. And visit us at successfulbarrister.com, no "the" there. And visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead & Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. Until next time, see ya.
Bye.